So Kathy, how do you evaluate or measure the effectiveness of an ORC investigator?
At this point, just approaching the end of our first year, what we've done is simply document the cases and the recoveries. We have not, because we don't have that much data yet to be able to analyze the shrink decline from one year to the next. So we'll be able to do, more what Jerry's saying in the future, where we'll be able to take a certain area and see the decline and shrink. At this point, we just haven't been in the game long enough to be able to do anything else other than the recoveries.
How do you decide the size of your ORC team? Store count, volume? Is there any type of equation there that you're using?
I go for as many guys I can get.
What we can afford.
You want the truth, or you want to?
But then again, that has to do with selling senior management on the position and showing them your ROI
I think
model.
you got to look at there again. It's this is an external problem. This is criminals.
Sure.
So as Jim probably tell you in his law enforcement career, you attack crime to where it exists. You attack, it dissipates, you pull back, you look where it is, you attack, dissipates, pull back. So I don't. It would probably be great to have 20 or 30 people. I don't know if I really want to do that many evaluations every year, but a company our size, we're 8,100 stores, probably dozen. I mean, you definitely need them in those top 10 markets. In some markets, you need a couple. I think everybody here at the table, we could triple our staff and keep every one of them very, very busy. So
you see it growing throughout the nation?
Yes, I do. No. As a retail industry, or as with Walgreens?
As a retail industry.
As a retail industry, and this is just one of those things that I really can't see how it cannot. If they don't want to grow this, I hope they got a second plan B, because this isn't backing up. And it's just too popular of a crime, too lucrative. Mm-hmm. It is, I haven't seen it let up. I've seen the retail industry much more knowledgeable about it today. I've seen law enforcement much more knowledgeable today. We catch many more people today, but look at their criminal histories. They're caught 30, 40 times. Mm-hmm. That rehabilitation thing ain't working on these guys.
And look at the response level on the part of the states. I mean, just last week, Colorado established the Colorado ORC Association. I mean, 4 states in the last 6 months have adopted new laws regarding ORC. So, and New York is under consideration now. So, I mean,
and those are great as long as people are going to enforce them.
Right.
Mm. It's great to have a new car, but if you don't have a driver's license, don't do you much good. You got to have people that's going to use that to catch these individuals, and sometimes that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And that's just being honest with you about it. I mean, it's not always law enforcement either. Sometimes it's higher up. Administrators, there's maybe some big event going on. We're in a case where maybe we put up hundreds of investigative hours, merchandise. The detectives were really with us, and then something happened, and they're pulled off of it for a few months. Mm. I don't think retail crime is looked at as that bad of a crime, in a sense.
And how do you sell it to the law enforcement groups that aren't part of these ORCA programs around the country when you walk in with your case? I mean, that's got to be a real...
Put your case together before you get there is what I've worked. I mean, PR, meet people before you need them, which always helps, but there are those occasions where you're somewhere where, you just don't, you just never went there before, and you're meeting them. But you put a case together and have it organized, and you go in there professionally and show them what you got. I think 99% of officers are going to take that case. Mm.
And also a partnership, mm-hmm. not just Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS going in alone, but going in together and with the case having everything documented.
There are 10 new laws currently in the works around the country right now in different states. And as these new laws are adopted, one of the important factors will be training law enforcement about the new tools available to them. But one of the challenges, frankly, going back to the use of drugs, a number of states in cutting back their public sector resources, one of the first things to go is mental health coverage. And so people that have been reliant upon mental health services are now either having to go further to get their drugs or being turned away altogether. And that then puts these people back out on the street. They're looking for something to do. They have some psychological disorder, and they are easily persuaded into doing something illegal, including targeting stores.
Mm-hmm. Now, many times they'll drive to these offense. They'll drive to a facility like that and grab 2 or 3 of them for the day, take off, shoplift, pay them, drop them back off. I've seen that many times.
So how does the store operations group and the field ORC team communicate? I mean, sometimes you can have some LP folks as well that are a little jealous of the ORC executives. You can have some of the operators that are questioning the effectiveness of this person running around at 3 in the morning and not showing up at store openings and so on and so forth. I mean, how do you have that communication tool from the ORC folks to the field in stores, people and LP folks? What kind of communicative tools do you have, or practices, so to speak?
You want me to go first, or Kathy?
Kathy.
For us, there's definitely that competitiveness there, but if you don't have the competitiveness, you probably have the wrong people in the job. So we have found that by communicating on a regular basis to the field individuals, letting them know what's going on in the ORC world, and also letting them know by them maybe going rogue on their own case, what are all of the impacts, what are all the pieces that it touches, because sometimes that field investigator doesn't understand that they're, maybe stepping on a case that CVS or Walgreens already has going on, or that case could actually extend into multiple states. So by communicating and educating the district management, loss prevention district managers, so they have a better understanding, that helps. We've also found by having like my position where, the ORC investigators report directly to me, but there's also this umbrella type effect over the other district managers, there's like one point person, a go-to person, but just continual communication is definitely, and we do that through, we do live broadcast, we have weekly communications, text blasts, different things that we do.
Jim?
So the communication is the key to the whole, and what we do is we take our case information, and some of the cases you have to keep it confidential, especially if you're already engaged in law enforcement. Then our practice is that it's a need-to-know basis in some cases. So, we'll deal loss prevention people within that area, maybe 1 or 2 of them, but we can't compromise an official police investigation. So that's where it becomes kind of dicey at times with operators. But just in general terms, we take our ORC efforts and our results that we have and go into the merchandise department and do a presentation. Say, this is your product going out the door. You're losing the money. Plus, we're probably buying it back too in some occasions. And then we'll bring the product protection piece into play. So we'll talk to those people about product protection, and then my people in the ORC group, they'll speak at least three or 4 meetings a month. Operators meetings, where maybe the store managers will come in, or there'll be the pharmacist meetings, and they'll just give a presentation as to what ORC is, because again, we're still trying to educate the retail world about what ORC is and how it impacts them specifically, because each store manager is getting their bottom line hit with it.
We do much similar to what Jim and Kathy do. We go around and as often as possible and speak at the district meetings and educate. And I think what we also do is we realize that store manager, the district loss prevention manager, the regional loss prevention director, all those people are very important components to us. They're our neighborhood, and they're our customers. So if they're not, that's where we get a lot of our intel. I think the biggest thing sometimes with them is when you have so many is, everybody thinks their fire is the hottest. And there's only 5 of us, there's 8 and 2. You can't run everybody's, but you don't call them up and say, hey, I'm doing this today, I can't take care of you. So you gotta know how to juggle that, keep them informed as much. Now I do There's one report I do monthly. I give a briefing to the directors. Then there's another report only goes to the VP, and then there's some things that don't even go there. You know, if it's a really high-profile case, it's as need-to-know basis. And we've had some egos get a little, sometimes, even my own. We all have egos. Sure. But for the most part, we get along. We get through that, recognizing it. There again, it comes back with maturity. This district supervisor is just wants to know what's going on in his area. That's what he or she is evaluated on, and you got to respect that. You know, when I was a district supervisor and I had somebody coming on my yard, I'd probably run you out, you know. but I just, you got to be able to recognize that and respect it. And they have a right to know. And if there's a situation that comes up where they don't need to know, or maybe they shouldn't know because there was a problem before, then we just address it head on. We're not going to tell you because you talked last time. But we just try to keep it as simple. It's, you know, that many employees, you're going to have situations, just how you handle them. It works all right. Much better than it did in the early 90s. Some people just, it was like a war. You're going to go into their market.
So, you know, there's been some press recently about what ORC, defining the bucket, and including piracy and counterfeiting and a whole bunch of stuff thrown into the bucket. I mean, what's the definition for the three of you? How do you define what ORC is from your company perspective?
You know, and I've thought of this just recently. I think I might even talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we throw that ORC word around too much. You know, does ORC start with the junkie who is stealing to feed his habit, or does it start to the guy who bought it that has 200 junkies bringing it to him? You know, I just sort of, I define ORC primarily as, just like the joint ORC task force, we define it. It's just two or more occupants working together and where they're stealing for the purpose of reselling it, longs and shorts of it. But it's not always, you know, I've had one conspirator, I mean, he worked by himself. He made an income of $50,000 a month. Is he an ORC guy? Because it's just one guy. Or is it the guy who was buying it? Now, he was a dandy, the guy who was buying it. I can tell you he was an ORC guy. But this guy, no, he's just a bad gambler, is what he was, and not a real good thief. So it's just, you just have to look at each individual. But I think, in the most part, what we deal with, you know, it's two or more working together. You know, 3 or 4 people running around town.
Yeah, I mean, I buy into that because we've talked ad nauseum about how we define ORC, but how I apply it in my role at CVS, I look at it as, you know, it's an organized crime. So what does that mean? For example, we had a group of people breaking into our stores up and down the California coast. I deployed my organized retail crime people into that. And with Rite Aid, and they hit us for, I don't know how many, hundreds of breaks, right? They were wiping us out. So I applied my resources, and Rite Aid did too, and we put together a pretty comprehensive program with the LAPD, and we actually were able to get them all arrested, but it took a lot of work.
Sure. And,
you know, some of the techniques we used I don't want to talk about because it was that successful, but I mean, I think that was a very successful operation, and that doesn't fall under the definition of organized retail crime. But I think if somebody's out there preying upon our stores and making money at it, and they're moving jurisdictionally around, and that's the biggest problem with ORC, is the jurisdictional issues. Those are the type of people that I'm going to be using my people for. So whatever that means.
Kathy?
Agreed. We sort of define it just primarily for resale, but we also put the organized approach to burglaries and robberies into that group also. So, and then we prioritize wherever it's hitting our bottom line the highest, the most. That's where we're going to put our, you know, our resources. So, in the Southern California incident, you know, we pulled, you know, as many resources as we needed to fight to address that issue. And then once that was resolved, then they could, you know, look into other things. But wherever we're going to get the most return on our investment.